Hey guys, we want to thank Cap City Tees for sponsoring today's episode. That's right, Cap City Tees, the #1 printing company in Sacramento. Well, at least in our hearts. Cap City Tees is an amazing company putting out amazing quality at, most importantly, amazing prices. They are in line with any major retailer out there. Now, if you're in need of getting a shirt screen printed or embroidered, whether that's your local soccer team or basketball team or volleyball team or all the way up to corporate clothing, Cap City Tees is the place to go. So if you're in need or if you're in want, reach out to Cap City Tees at capcitytees.com or capcitytees@gmail.com. That's capcitytees@gmail.com. Welcome to the Hard Money Show, where we talk about real estate, home loans, and media. It is a good day. Well, except it's raining. I thought it was supposed to get into 80 degrees this week here in California. And so I'm a little disappointed because, well, it's been raining a lot, and yeah, we need the water here in California, and I know we don't get very much, and I'm sure this is great for people who love rain and people who love to be up in the snow, but me personally, I'm a beach person, and so it is a good day, but I do wish that it wasn't raining, especially when I was going to the gym this morning. So, well, now that I digress, why don't we get into the podcast for the day, guys? So today is a solo podcast. We are going to be going over something that I think is super critical for realtors and loan officers to be able to do this as a career, right? I think we often think that things are going to be easier than they are. And I see that a lot in the case of being a loan officer and being a realtor, because people think, and I think this was especially true in the last 3 years because of, everything that was going on around the world, and there was a huge refi boom, and everyone thought, okay, this is the time to get into real estate, and this is the time to become a loan officer because there's so much business, and you can just become rich, and it's going to be amazing, and I'll be able to buy my boat finally, right? And so the thing about it is, like any job that is sales-based, there's a lot of work that goes into it, right? It's not typically a 9-to-5 sort of job. And especially when in the era that we're in, where branding is so critical, especially even for up to the individual, we really have to consider what it takes to be in this profession. Now, we've done quite a few podcasts on, some of the systems I use and some things that I think are critical for realtors and loan officers to consider. But I think that this is a really good one because really this is where my past expertise lies in, and I haven't gone into it too in depth. And I'd like to do that today. What is that, you may be asking? Well, that is planning a week of social media posts. I know, exciting stuff, right? But this is extremely critical. Now, we have a very unique perspective on social media at our brokerage. I have my degree in media and public relations. I've done some facet of brand development or marketing, ad design, whatever it may be, for the better part of 15 years now. I got into it really when I turned 18, went to college and started getting into clubs and learning how to promote them, right? Learning how to do graphic design, learning how to make flyers, learning how to make copy for those flyers, things like that. And, that kind of progressed into jobs that I did. Now, I never distinctly had a marketing title or a public relations title. What I found, and I worked with a lot of nonprofits as well, keep that in mind. What I found is a lot of people for a very long time, a lot of companies, a lot of nonprofits did not prioritize marketing dollars. And this was especially true and a major frustration for me 2012, or, right when I was getting out of college and I had all of this experience. And I was getting very heavy into the job market and getting real jobs, right? I mean, I've always had a job since I was 15, but, or 15 and a half, 16, but real jobs. And so it was extremely frustrating me when I was trying to explain to a board of directors or CEO or whoever was in charge the importance of leveraging at this time the development of social media and how this was going to be critical. And by getting into it now, you're going to be an early adopter and you're going to be able to drive business to you. Now, at that time, it was extremely difficult to measure the ROI. It can still be pretty difficult now. One of the key adages that, we used to say kind of like in this industry, or at least the people that I was around, is like, how do you measure the ROI of a smile? Right. I mean, it's kind of like that in social media. Right. And now it's a lot different because all of these systems have back end data analytics built into them. So you can really see the impact, and we've been able to put a better dollar value to converting these over. But earlier, it was really just about getting people into the system, really getting your brand out there and developing that. And nobody that I worked with wanted to invest in it. And I think that's why companies that did invest in it really early, they saw so much success moving forward. And it's not just the fact that you are engaged in social media and that you're building a brand, but it's that when you do things for long periods of time, you learn how to do them effectively, right? And that's really the thing. You learn what has worked, what hasn't worked, what's going to be coming forward, how to integrate that sort of stuff in. And that's really the key thing, right? I mean, let's say right now I started an Instagram and you started Instagram. I'm fairly certain, outside of, any sort of, if you're extremely charismatic or you're using, something that I may not be using to gain followers. And what I mean by that is, maybe you're showing more skin, maybe you are skydiving, without any clothes on. You're doing something crazy, right? To go viral. Outside of that, I'm talking about traditional building through, consistent posting and organic development. The likelihood that you would outperform me is very low. And that's purely based on the fact that I've done it for so long and I've done it with different platforms and I understand key developments on these platforms and their effects on driving business. And so for me, that was a really frustrating thing. And so we come all the way to 2023 now, and I'm still dealing with the same problem, but less on the business side. On the business side, people are not people, but I should say corporate side, they've really understand it now. They really understand the importance of it. They have money behind it. Social media managers are a much bigger thing. Marketing managers, account managers, whatever they came up with them. But ultimately, it's a much more appreciated position within the industry. And it's almost like sales, right? Sales has always been, if you want to make money, you get into sales. There's a lot of things you can do, but sales is a pretty sure bet that if you learn how to do it effectively, you can pretty much go to any company that has some sort of sales base and you can do well and live. Well, marketing is sort of becoming that same way, because marketing is driving, business in, and it's leading to fiscal growth. And so it's surprising that when, I would have thought that it would have been easier for individuals to accept this because they're so much more integrated, especially people that are around my age and younger, so integrated into social media development, that you would think that they would understand the importance of this brand development, right? Or these postings, and they don't, right? It's one of the most difficult things that I find that I deal with realtors that come into this industry. Now, there's some reason behind this, and I don't want to get too in depth about it because really this is about planning a week of social media posts. But I do want to give context so people understand what's going on. And maybe if you're one of these people who's like, "Oh, I'm not quite ready to post and things like that, or you're one of kind of these disillusioned people that think that you're going to start a social media account and you're going to get 80 deals from it because whatever reason. I want to try to help guide people and make things realistic for them so they really understand. So, the important thing to really filter out here is why is this so difficult for people? Well, it's like anything else. It is a new skill set and granted it's become a lot easier for people to post to design quality and really with the development of chat gpt now there should really be no excuse for putting out bad copy or open ai whichever engine whatever you're using. But the general idea is there shouldn't be any reason to put out bad copy. There shouldn't be any reason to put out bad photos, bad designs, because it's so easy now to do that. Now, if you're taking photos, that might be a little bit different because I understand that, if you're not taking them on like your iPhone or your Android or whatever, there's not any, you have to learn how to use the camera correctly. You're going to have to learn how to edit it or whatever. But for the most part, all of that stuff is the difficulty of that is relatively gone, but it's a new thing. People are extremely intimidated by putting stuff out, feeling like, oh, people aren't going to think it's professional. People aren't going to think it looks good. I'm going to tell you the truth. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody's even going to be looking at your social media. I mean, that's the truth. And I know that might sound difficult to say or hear, and that might, be like, well, why would I even do social media? But what I'm talking about is your first 100, 300, 500 posts, unless you hit some sort of viral, capability. And we're going to try to leave that out of this conversation because not many people can do that. It's a very, very small group of people that are, good at creating content like that. So for everybody else, the only people that are going to be looking at your social media are maybe a couple random people and then your friends and family that you send your stuff out to. And if they're your friends and family and, they're going to be kind to you, I hope. I hope, right? So people worry about that. It's not really something you should worry about. What you need to worry about is getting stuff up. That's it, right? It's how consistent can I get that up? Now, for the other side of people that think that like, oh, it's going to be really easy, I'm going to get it up and things like that, social media is not enough for most people. It's a tool, right? It is something you use to help leverage your brand, but it's not going to be the sole thing that's going to make you in this business. And so if you're spending 40, 60 hours a week developing just your social media, that might become a problem for you. It might not be a great use of your time. Here's the reason why. The ROI on online leads are so unbelievably low, right? They're like less than 1% conversion rate. I mean, really depend on where you get them, right? If you can drive people from one platform to another to, your website, and then they're reading your website, that might be a bit different. But for most people, the conversion for that, even like, hot like leads that come from Zillow, the conversions on those are not great. And even if you do convert them, you're paying huge overhead to back to Zillow. And so this organic sort of posting like this you should really come at this from a different perspective. It's about building and generating a brand that brings value to your customers. Once you can bring value to your customers, and keep in mind, I mean, this is not like once a year I see my niece and nephew and I give them a Christmas gift and, yeah, they're a little bit happy. That's not true value, right? I mean, that's nice. Give them a gift. Awesome. But that's not true value. True value in the social media sphere is daily posting, things that will help people on a consistent basis, right? You're a business. Your job in on this, in the social media sphere is to either provide value or, well, it's really just to provide value, but that can be in different forms, right? It can be in education, it can be in entertainment. And so that's really the critical thing. And that's where I try to really impress upon people. The first thing you need to do before you even start posting social media is get your mind right, right? Set an expectation from yourself. Don't deviate from that expectation. And, if you need to write it down, if you need to tell people, if you need to make a public challenge, whatever it is that gets you motivated, ultimately you need to do that because you're not going to do this well unless you're in the right mindset. And if you think, oh, well, I'll do one post a day, or I'll do one post every other couple days, or whatever it is, you're not going to see any real success on these platforms. And a good example of this is I have I don't want to call it like a business page because it's not, it's for a hobby that I have. And, someday maybe I'd like to leverage it to a business. But right now, it's really was just about me posting stuff that I'm interested in, kind of like showing people like, hey, these are some of the things that are interesting in this industry that I'm following, and then following people who I thought were really interesting in the industry so I could continue to learn, right? I mean, and leverage social media and be like, I'm only going to add people that are in doing things in this activity that I'm interested in. So that's really what I did for it. And I've gotten, people to follow me on it, but it's like, that's not really what it's for. But if I wanted it to be, I would go in a different direction. And I was at one point when I was, depending on how active I am with that hobby, I might be posting every day or multiple times a day, or I might not post for a couple weeks. So that's, I think that's a lot of how people treat their business social media. Sometimes they're just not consistent with it, and they highly underestimate how important it is to leverage this social media and how much work goes into doing it. So that's going to kind of lead us into the first point. I know that was a long intro to, planning a week of social media posts, but I really think that that's getting your mind right is extremely critical, because if you don't have that first set in, you're not going to be able to do the rest of this. So let's kind of go to the first thing, which is determining where you are on branding. Now, what I mean by that is, people who are listening to this, you may not be in the industry at all, or, whatever it is, but if you are in the industry, you might be brand new, or you might be seniored inside of this industry, right? And so you might already have a strong brand. A good example of this is my broker has been in the industry for 20 years, and he's done very, very little marketing over 20 years, very little, maybe, a couple ads a year, or every couple years, just if he's trying to promote a certain program or whatever it is, but it's very, very little. But he has an extremely strong brand within his community, right? People know him as a realtor because he's been doing it for so long, a loan officer. And his brand is strong now. Is it strong everywhere? No. But it's strong within the community that he has, and he's able to have a career out of it. Now, that might be the case for some of you, and that might mean that you'll be able to leverage your social media a little bit different than somebody that's brand new. Now, somebody that's brand new, you're nobody in this industry. And the conversation that I have with people, or with our realtors, is you want to make, they're typically with brokerages, you have large brokerages, you have medium-sized brokerages, and you have small brokerages. And they have their own branding leverage that you're going to be able to utilize. And a lot of times that's why people go to large brokerages, because then they can say that I'm with this large brokerage and they're one of the best brokerages in the country. And because I'm there, I'm also important because they're important, right? And because they're good, I'm good. And that leveraging can be extremely important for people for getting you on your feet. But you might not have that same power with kind of a smaller brokerage, right? But they probably, if they've been around for a while, if they're not brand new, they have some leveraging power as well. And I find that a lot of times people who create their social media individually in this industry want to market themselves, and they don't want to really like market a lot of what like the company is doing and things like that, right? I mean, I'll see a logo here and there, and things like that. But I'm like, why would you fight, the company that you're against? Like, you leverage everything that they have, right? Take a full advantage of what they have, and really put that forward. And so that's kind of the first thing. And I know it's like people are like, oh no, like I posting, like I'm at EXP and I post like EXP, whatever. But I'm like, people are not doing it enough, and they're not doing it well enough. And I kind of see it like, oh, I want to create my own website. I want to have, my own Instagram and all this stuff that doesn't have it. Like, it's just me talking about real estate, but they're not ever posting anything about like the company they're with and things like that. And so I think, depending on if you're brand new or you're established and where your brand is, then that's going to determine where we are starting in this process. But the ultimate goal to start, if you have zero posts or you have very little posts, is brand development on the platform, right? That means that you have to be able to establish a message through the 3 block. So that means when they're looking at the full, not each individual post, but when they're looking at the 3, 3, 3 all the way down, those 3 blocks, they need to be able to look at it and be like, this is what this person or company, whatever it is, however you established yourself, is about, right? Without having to click on the post and without having to read the content, they need to be able to look at that and be like, okay, this is what it is. And that's kind of the first overarching thing, is developing that sort of idea, right? Like, I'm trustworthy, or I'm funny, or I'm fun, or whatever it is. And then ultimately, I'm in real estate, I'm a loan officer, right? That has to become very apparent in the what you're putting on there, and that comes with the video or photo that you're doing, and then being able to see it and easily identify it, right? Now, that's kind of the bare bones of that marketing, right? It's creating that overarching message. But, that's not all of it. That's a portion of it, and it's extremely important portion of it, but that is not all of it. Now, the next thing that kind of goes into this branding is, and this is where I say there's maybe a little bit of confliction, is how does everything cohesively go together, and how have you determined, what your brand looks like? And the clearest example that I can give you for this is like Coca-Cola, right? Coca-Cola is synonymous with white and red. It's synonymous with Christmas. It's synonymous with polar bears. It's synonymous with Santa Claus, right? That's their branding, right? Their color red, Coca-Cola red is, and the same way Pepsi blue, that sort of thing. And so is there cohesiveness through your entire posting of your brand coloring, your brand font, your brand messaging, all of that sort of stuff. And so it can be really overwhelming up first to be like, okay, I have to get all of this stuff established and whatever it is. But I mean, go to ChatGPT. It'll help you create, ChatGPT helped me make, design a brand for real estate or whatever it is, right? It's never been easier to do this, right? You have all the resources in the world with that, with Google, with this podcast and other people in the industry. But again, the question is like, let's say that, your company's branding is orange and your branding is purple, right? That might be a little bit, off balance, because if you want to be posting the logos of your company and things like that, and then you're going to be posting your colors, that might really be conflicting with, with the aesthetics of your 3 blocks. And so these are things that I want you to think about, right? I want you to think about, both your company, both yourself. What's your long-term goal? How do you want people to perceive you, right? And it's easy to say, yeah, I want them to think I'm trustworthy, and I want them to think that I'm competent and that I'm a very capable realtor or loan officer. But that's not it, right? Some people, their branding is community, right? I'm a community person. That's all that matters to me, is helping people in the community. I volunteer. I help with low income buyers, right? That is my focus. Other people, luxury. Luxury is all I do or all I really want to do. That's where I want to be. These are the areas that I'm in. And, you have to establish those sort of things. Now, I think most people that enter the industry, they go, yeah, I want to be a luxury realtor, loan officer. I want to do $1 million properties because the money is so good. But that's not the case for everybody. And I'm not saying you should pigeonhole yourself like that, but I definitely think, if you're passionate about a certain direction, or, if you're kind of trying to leverage the fact that, you're really into sports and you're the sport realtor or whatever it is, you need to have that sort of stuff done. So first things first, establish the branding for yourself. Do some research, learn what it means to brand, learn what it means to get all of the stuff designed. If you do not know how to do it, or you just don't want to do it up front because you could have somebody design this branding for you, obviously with your help, reach out to me. I'll help you with it. I'm going to charge you because professionally, that's what I can do. I am a professional person in brand development, social media development, marketing and sales, ads. So I'm not going to do it for free, and neither will most people. So that's something to consider. Everything that I try to give you on this podcast, it makes it so it's the lowest entry point cost wise, right? I want you to be able to do it. And that's how I built everything that I've ever had. I didn't come from money. So it's not like I could just throw money at my problems and try to leverage it. Everything I've done, all the way from audio design to marketing to videography and photography and lighting, all of that stuff I just learned how to do. And so it takes a very long time to learn how to do this stuff. So, you can pay the money and you can save some time, or you can not pay the money and not save some time. That's up to you. But the first idea is generally you need to really understand what that branding is going to look like for yourself. Number 2, research your local post. There's nothing more effective for loan officers are a little bit different because they can function anywhere through the state, right? I can do all of my stuff online. Loan officers they're remote workers. They pretty much have been since things went mostly digital. And so that makes it a lot easier. Realtors, local. That's what people understand. That's what people like. That's what people respect. And ultimately, that's the most bang for your buck. That's where the most value is, because it doesn't make sense. And I've done this. I did this when I first started. It was pretty difficult. Driving an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours away to go show properties. And luckily, I kind of lucked out where I was able to kind of keep it to the weekends. But there were a couple of times where I'd have to drive out in the middle of the week and because something came on that made a lot of sense. And I didn't mind it. Personally, I don't mind it. But it's a lot more difficult than driving 15 minutes down the road to go show a property, right? So it's not only that, but it's also people really like the idea that the community that you're going to help put them in, right? So you need to start as micro as you possibly can, right? Start with where you live. That's the easiest thing to do. Find every key thing in your community. And what I mean by that is find churches, find schools, find grocery stores, find your local service clubs like Rotary, Kiwanis, find Freemasons, find the Moose Lodge, the Elk Lodge. All of these organizations are really important in the community, right? They make a big impact, right? And then you can focus on businesses, things like that. Now, once you have these, establish if they have any social media, right? Follow them on social media, see what they're posting about, right? That's going to help you first develop in the community. Then try to find realtors that are marketing in that community. Think community, right? So let's say that Pocket Green Haven, hashtag Pocket Green Haven, hashtag Pocket, hashtag Green Haven, right? Think of the small micro community hashtags that might exist. Sometimes they could be a little bit difficult to find, but then you can go start branching out a little bit further. Find realtors that are marketing in that area. Figure out what they're doing, replicate it. Start there. You don't need to beat them. Replicate it. Try to do as well as everybody else in your community is doing. Then you can start to try to find a way to do better than what they're doing. But if you're not even matching them, that a lot of people want to go from 1 to 100. It's not the way to do this, right? Figure out what everyone's doing and match it. Now, start local. Find the hashtags, find the social media posts, find the businesses and the clubs and the organizations and the other nonprofits and the other, organizations within that community, and start to follow them, start to look at their posts, figure out what is important to people in this community, find the community calendar, find the Chamber of Commerce website, join the Chamber of Commerce if you can, go to these local events. Do your research, right? Find out what is being posted locally, post that stuff as well. Then figure out what isn't being posted that should be posted and post that, right? We want to establish ourselves as an expert within that community. And if you think that sounds overwhelming, that's because it is. And this is the thing that can be a little bit frustrating is people want to market to Sacramento. And that's fine. Sacramento is people know the name because it's the capital. And it's going to be important to include that sort of stuff in your branding and marketing. But the thing is that Sacramento has a lot of micro communities, and those micro communities are already a lot of work, right? Let's say that I'm just talking about Fair Oaks. Fair Oaks is a relatively small part of Sacramento. There is a lot that goes on in Fair Oaks. There's a lot of community pride. There's a lot of community activities, community sports, community theater, whatever it is. I mean, there's a lot going on in just the small part of Fair Oaks. And imagine if I had to do everything I just said for all the micro communities in Sacramento, right? And that's kind of when you say like Sacramento, people don't really think that you know the area super well. Like Sacramento, but it's like what parts of, once you're like looking in here, like what parts of Sacramento do you know? Do you know West Sac? Do you know Elk Grove? Do you know Folsom? Rancho Cordova? What part of Sacramento are you really focusing on? And then it's really like they're going to look at your posts, and this is where the branding comes back to. If they're looking at it and they're going to be like, well, this guy's all over the place, like, and they might be like, okay, but if they're looking in West Sacramento and they see 60 posts about things in West Sacramento, they're going to be like, yeah, this guy knows what's going on in West Sacramento. This guy's going to be able to find me a deal. He's going to be able to find me what I want, right? So do your research. It's so critical. Get an Excel open or get a Word document open and get a notepad out, but get this stuff written down, get as deep as you possibly can into that community, and then start generating your post out of that, right? Now, before we talk about what to actually post, right? Because that's kind of the last thing here. It's probably what most people are like, well, what do I actually post to be successful? Before we talk about that, we're going to talk about number 3, which is habit building in posting. This, it's all, takes a lot of work, but this is the most difficult thing for people is consistency. And consistency is for me, it's the number one attribute for a successful individual is consistency, right? Somebody that can do something over and over and over and over, that will do it and make sure to get at least getting better, right? That they're trying to get better, and those people tend to be really successful in life, right? And I just saw, I've actually seen it a couple times, but somebody talking about how if you do an activity 18 minutes a day, every day for a year, 18 minutes a day, which is not a lot, right? We can all agree 18 minutes is a pretty small commitment to do anything. Now, it might not feel like that in the day because, yesterday I felt kind of sick. It is what it is. But 18 minutes, if you do that, you will be in the top 95% of that activity. 95%. I mean, that's pretty outstanding for an 18-minute commitment every single day, right? Now, it's going to take you quite a long time to be, an expert in it, but that's substantial. And that's what, when we're talking about this consistency, this is where people have the most difficulty with this. They'll post really consistent for 2 weeks. If we're being truly honest, 5 days is really the max of what I see people being consistent. They'll typically start on a Monday. It's almost like working out. By the weekend, they're done, right? Or they'll do Monday through Friday. They won't do the weekends or, whatever it is. But typically within a month, they're done posting consistently, right? You'll still see stuff come here and there. But ultimately, that's what I see. So it is so importantly critical that you find a way to build this into your daily habits, right? Like brushing your teeth, like eating, like going to the gym and showering. Doing your social media posts is in part of the integral part of your life because it's going to mean your success. It's going to mean being able to put food on your table and possibly your family's table and to pay your house and get a mortgage. I mean, it's really is important if this is the way you're going to leverage it. Now, after this, we'll talk about alternatives to social media posting. But for now, the habit building is so important. Put it in your calendar. Get it done. If that means you have to wake up at 4:30 so you get it done before any other time, or you have to do it at night before you go to bed, but mark out 15 minutes to do your posting. Now, for me, I can get posting done very quickly because I know the right places to go. I know the right content to pull. I know right things to write. So it might take you a little bit longer. Or might need to mark out a half an hour a day or an hour a day, or you might need to do 4 hours in one day to go shoot all the content that you want to do. I did a series one time of was all these mailboxes in Midtown that were decorated. And we went and did a photo shoot of all of those mailboxes and where to find them in Midtown / kind of going into downtown Sacramento. And it was just kind of a fun thing to do, but it took about half a day to do stuff like that, right? There's portraits all over Midtown and downtown Sacramento as well. We did a series on that. We did a series on the, if you were in Midtown and keep in mind at the time I lived in Midtown, our brokerage is in Midtown. So I do business in Midtown. It was the easiest thing for me to do at the time. Was to we did like all the parks within 1 mile of Midtown. We did all the grocery stores within 1 mile of Midtown, and we featured one a day. And we did, wrote a little write up about it. We said how far it was from Midtown Center or whatever. So that's, you got to establish, like, it might take a little bit of time to get content pulled in for yourselves and, be fair to yourself about that because you're brand new. But after that, you really need to be consistent and get on a schedule with it. Once you can do that, that leaves us really into 4. What should you be posting about? And granted, I just talked about this a little bit, but it's going to come back to, I think you should post about things that you're excited about, things that you care about, things that you think other people are going to care about in the community. That's going to be the easiest thing to do because if you go through, this can be really tough for brand new realtors, especially if you're an established realtor. It's a little bit different because you have so much knowledge base in the industry. You can post about very specific things about being a loan officer or a realtor. But if you're brand new, it feels overwhelming to put something out about this industry that you're not entirely sure about, right? And so that's why it's really easy to do. It's easier to go in the direction of putting up new listings that are out. They don't have to be yours, but give credit to the people that they do belong to. New listings are out, walkthroughs of those properties. And like I said, right, finding different key things in the community that you think people should know about or be visiting, key activities that are going to be happening, right? Like, let's use Fair Oaks as an example. Do they do a fireworks show around 4th of July? Where does that happen at? Can you go view it? Are there parades that families can go to in this community, right? And so things like that, once you do your research, you're going to be able to figure out what you should be posting. Now, when you're actually posting, Videos are typically better than photos. Photos are better than just writing, right? And if you're gonna put anything out, it doesn't have to look super edited, doesn't have to look super professional. Just make sure that it's not trash, right? I mean, that's the key thing, or a little bit of professionalism here. Put out things that look okay, and you should have already, from your research, have some key hashtags that you think will help you build your following in those communities. So you should have your hashtags, you should have your photos that you're going to be using, and then it's really about what are you going to write in there, right? Don't make it too long, or depending on the platform, right? Right now, I'm kind of focusing on Instagram, but you could post on TikTok, which is a different format, and maybe it's someday we could talk about the difference between posting on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and how to leverage those correctly. But for now, Instagram, like, which I think is where most people start because it's a lot easier, or Facebook. I really recommend you have your Facebook and Instagram start at the same time, and you just feed stuff from your Instagram into your Facebook to start. That's the easiest thing to do. But get your post up and, make sure you have all these things. Again, if you're not good at writing stuff, you're not super creative in that space, then use things like ChatGPT, use the AI that's coming out to help you make things that are creative or whatever it may be, informative, and make sure that the stuff that's coming out of the systems is correct. But ultimately, have that sort of system in place. And then it's really just about going back to, step number 3, being consistent with it and making it a habit. And so that is really the key 4 things that I really think are important for this, right? I'm not going to tell you exactly what to post every single day. Now, I will tell you that I am a huge Gary Vee fan. If you're not following Gary Vee, go follow Gary Vaynerchuk. He is a marketing master, and the number one thing that he says about people that are trying to leverage social media is that they do not leverage it hard enough. What do I mean by that? Well, it means they don't post enough. He recommends, he says post 100 times a day. 100 times. Now, for one individual, is that possible? No, not really. I found that a extremely dedicated, well-balanced, and organized individual can post about 5 times a day. If they're really, really aggressive and they make things that, the editing to them is very little and you can replicate a lot of them, you could do 10 a day. But really about 5 is consistently where I can see people maxing out on this and doing it effectively. Most people will post 1 time a day. It's not enough. 5 times even isn't really enough, right? You're fighting against Google. You're fighting against big business. You're fighting against Redfin and, United Wholesale Mortgage. You're fighting against all of these large corporations for attention. You're not going to beat them in SEOs. You have to beat them in being creative. You have to beat them in being local. And you have to do it consistently. And you have to get enough posts out there so at least you're going to be showing up. That's the important thing. So I would say at least 5 posts a day, every single day. Even if you are going on vacation, even if you get sick, you should invest in a social media platform that will post for you. So you stage everything. You can do it on a Sunday, spend 5 hours staging everything for the week, and it will post every post for you every single day, and you can get, everything up. That's really probably the most effective thing. So you don't have to do it every single day. Find a way to be consistent in this, but you really, really need to leverage the amount of posting that you're going to be doing. And if you're doing 1 a day, it's not going to cut it. It's really not. So, especially if you're trying to make this into a career, right? You need at least 1 deal every other month to be able to even survive and with where inflation's going, I really would say you should probably be closer. That's, 6 deals a year, depending on the industry you're in, depending on the deals, but like average deals, you really should be doing at least 10 real estate deals for a loan officer. It's probably closer, if this is your sole income, probably closer to like 15 to 25, because, loan officers get paid less on a deal than realtors do. So, I, you know, you really want to be consistent on this and find a way to make it a little bit easier for yourself. But ultimately, this is what I would recommend. Now, this is a conversation, and we've already been going quite a long time. This is a conversation I could have with somebody for 3 hours and do a workshop on it, doing a clinic on it, or whatever it is, how to do this effectively. And we didn't even talk about any platform specific posting, right? This is why when people get hired for this, they get hired and contracted for months at a time to help really build all of this up correctly. Now, I want to say that the amount of posting that you do on social media and the intent of the social media really matters, right? The amount of posting is great, but keep in mind, right? If you spend all your time posting and then you have really good feedback, and let's say you're doing well on social media, and I think Graham Stephan's a good example of this. Graham Stephan's a realtor. If you don't know about him, but go follow him. He was a realtor. He did really well, started a YouTube channel and did really well on there. And then really just stopped doing real estate. I mean, he did some personal stuff. He probably did a couple deals here, but he doesn't really do real estate anymore. You see that a lot in the real estate industry where people become famous on social media. Within our industry, they stop doing real estate. So if real estate is what you want to do long term, and that's what your career is going to be, there's not a huge innate value for you becoming like a sensation on social media, because eventually the amount of time that it takes for you to continue to keep up your following, and then you're making money off of social media, you're not going to have time to do real estate anymore. And maybe you don't want to do it, right? But if you want to be a social influencer, there's far more interesting things that you can become famous for than talking about real estate. I promise you that. So that's the thing where I say, well, you need to put a certain amount of time into it, but at another point, you're not trying to be a social media influencer, right? And the amount of time that it would take for you to do that is a full-time job, and you're trying to build a career in real estate because that's what you enjoy doing. So do enough to drive yourself business, right? If you can get a couple deals a year off social media, that would be great, right? Now, we do not believe in 100% social media as your way to drive business. There's a much higher conversion rate as working with people in person, networking in person, creating in-person relationships, and leveraging those to business with them, referrals, things like that, right? There's no argument for that. But you do need some social media in there as well. And so maybe we'll someday talk about the strategy with the two and integrating them effectively, but you can't do you really should, if you're brand new, especially, you should try to do both of them. Find a way to integrate it in the community and do your posting, so then you have somewhere to send them, so you have some legitimacy to who you are as a professional, right? But social media is not the only way to go. There is other ways, but it's definitely, as we move forward in the social media space in Web 3.0, it's going to become more and more critical that you have that web presence for people to feel comfortable to work with you, right? And so that is why I have the podcast. That's why, I actually have the podcast because I really enjoy talking to people about real estate and loans, and I like to bring it out. But it's also another opportunity to promote my business as well, right? On some level. That's why I have a blog. That's why I have macthemortgageman.com. I have all of these things because I want to be able to put a presence out there that says like, hey, I'm integrated completely into this industry. And if you're looking for a professional, like, I'm here, I can help you. I'm knowledgeable. I know what's going on. And so that's what I hope for all of you guys, right? So again, if this is a very overwhelming thing, if you're like, I still am not entirely sure where to go, send me a message. go to my website, click on a session there, and we can, do a catch up and talk a little bit. They're free, doesn't cost anything. And so, I hope this was helpful. I know it's a lot. It feels like you're like, wow, that's like a whole business on top of I still need to learn how to do real estate, or I'm still trying to run my real estate business. So I understand it. I understand where you're at, and that's why I try to help people on this. But it's also can be really fun and really enjoyable, and you get to engage in people, and people follow your content, and it feels good. So don't be scared. Find a way to get in there and start doing it. And as always, guys, this is the Hard Money Show where we talk about real estate, home loans, and media. You guys have a great day.